Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hello. It's March 2020. Welcome back to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Hey, thanks for coming along on this journey for this show that is designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show. Usually, I am joined by my co-host, Craig Brown. Craig is an industry veteran and the former PLM leader at General Motors. So oftentimes we are doing interviews with really smart people in this industry, and Craig and I are asking all kinds of questions. But today's show is going to be a little different. Today's show is just me, and I'm here to talk to you about going to a conference. As I said, it's March, and March kicks off the conference season in a lot of businesses. There are so many events that you can attend in March, April, May, and June. Before we get to the summer, there are a lot of opportunities for you to get personal development, lots of learning, and networking at any number of industry events that are designed to help you grow and succeed more. However, sometimes it's hard to get your boss to agree to send you to a conference. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. You know, there's a lot of reasons why bosses aren't really big on sending their employees to industry events. Some of these are really good reasons. Some of them are just the way your boss looks at conferences, which might be different than the way you do. So one of the big factors is cost. To attend a multi-day conference can be really expensive. And so the boss wants to make sure that there is going to be a return on investment as far as the money and time that's being invested. Lots of times when people ask if they can go to some sort of an industry event, some companies say, yeah, we don't really do that around here. But that doesn't mean that answer has to stick. Just because they haven't traditionally sent people to a conference doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to plead your case. As long as your boss doesn't think that going to an industry event is a total waste of time, then there are ways to get around it. What you need to do is ask a bunch of questions. Find out what the reasoning is. There may be some reasons that are really firm as to why they don't do it. Others might just be sort of that age-old answer of, well, we never have, therefore we don't. Sometimes bosses are also concerned that if you go to a 2 or 3 day conference, that's taking you out of the office for 3 or 4 days, which means some of that work is going to be put on to other people. You're not going to be around to do the basic things, and they don't want to pile things up. Other people worry that maybe if they send you to a conference, other people are going to be jealous. So if you want to go to an industry event, if you've been looking on the calendar at the digitalenterprisesociety.org website or something else in the industry where you're thinking, yeah, I want to go to that, then there's a couple things you have to do before, during, and after the conference to make sure that your employer and the whole team that you work with is really excited about having you engaged in that activity. So there's a couple things. So number one, let's talk about before the conference. When you're trying to convince your boss that you should be able to go to this event, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to be clear when you're pitching the idea of going to the conference that you've done your homework. You know exactly what it is that this conference is about. You know how many people are going to be there, you know who attends, and you know what the benefits are. Also, make sure that you take the time to look at the entire agenda. List out who the industry speakers are. Are there people speaking on the agenda that are really important to the work that you're doing? Are they the thought leaders who are really changing things that impact your company, your team, and you as you do your job? So make sure that you're very clear on what the conference is. And then the second thing is make a list as to why you want to go. There's lots of reasons that people want to attend a conference, and all of them are good. Conferences are more than just learning. Conferences have so many pieces to it, but the number one thing your boss is going to want to hear about is the personal development that's available to you if you attend the event. So make sure that you are really clear as to what it is that you're trying to learn. What is that professional development that you're going to be able to take back into your daily job that's going to inspire you, motivate you, educate you to be more effective in what you do on a day-to-day basis. Now, second reason that people attend conferences is for the networking opportunities. And sometimes this scares a boss. If you say you want to go for the networking opportunities, sometimes people are worried, maybe you're going to go shopping for another job. Or even if you're not looking for another job, sometimes there are managers who are really worried that if you participate in the industry and you're really good at what you do, someone is going to come and steal you away. Now, if that's a fear that your boss has, there's no way you can talk them out of that. Some people just really believe that's why people network. But the reality is we network for so many different reasons, and a lot of it has a direct impact on our company. I know that there's a lot of industry conferences where people get to go and meet people in other companies who do the same jobs they do. So their networking isn't that they want to go move companies. Their networking is there so that they can have people that they can turn to. Because when you have a really strong network of contacts inside the industry, even people who work for different types of companies, but maybe do the same job that you do, what that does is it makes it so much easier for you to answer the tough questions that come up on a day-to-day basis as you do your job. If you use a certain technology tool and you're going to their users conference for that company that supplies that tool, when you meet other people who are using it on a day-to-day basis, they're only a phone call away to help you do workarounds if there's something special that you want to do. So make sure that your boss understands that your professional networking isn't because you want to leave the company. Your professional network is there because you want to be a bigger resource for the company in the fact that you have these contacts of people out there who are using the same products, doing similar type things. And another reason why it's really smart to be able to go to industry events is to meet the vendors who sell into your companies. Now, lots of times people think, oh God, I don't want to go to the trade show. There's just salespeople there. The vendors, they all just want to sell to me or my company, and I'm not a decision maker. I don't want to go there and talk to them. Well, actually you do. Because when you make friendships, when you make real professional connections with people who sell into your company, into your industry, they sell to your boss, they sell to your competitors, what happens is that they have some of the best industry information that's going on out there because they call on so many people. Now, it's not that these vendors ever tell tales out of school, but human beings who build relationships, we share stories, we share best practices, we can't help it. So when you know the vendors who call on companies just like yours, you're going to have more access to all the information because they see little tweaks here, little ideas there. So you want to make sure that you're thinking through everyone who's going to be at that conference, not just the people you could network who are your peers, but who else out there. And the vendors and the speakers are really good to network with. And that's something that a lot of people, will talk about this when we get to during the conference. Make sure that you're looking for ways that you can actually connect with the people who are putting on the sessions, especially the breakout sessions that you're going to be attending. And you can even reach out to them in advance. If you're going to be going to the conference, you can go onto LinkedIn and reach out to the speaker of some of the breakouts you want to go to and let them know how excited you are about their topic and ask them some specific questions. And then maybe that will help them as they're putting together their presentation to be able to make it just customized enough for you and the rest of the audience. So know the why you want to go. That's probably my second tip. The third tip is, what are the benefits to the company? Really think through, if I go to this conference, why is this a good thing for my employer? So often people forget that. We get focused on sort of that, the next thing, like I'm going to talk about is what's in it for you. But we often forget this third one of what's in it for my boss. What is it if I go, I can bring back? Clearly, we can't send everyone in a company or even in a department to a conference. But that person who's going will learn knowledge, they'll make connections, they'll figure out things, maybe how to look at things just a little differently. And when they do that, what we can do is we can bring that information back into the company. So be thinking that through as part of the pitch that you make to your boss about why you're going to go. And then number 4, be really clear about why it is you want to go. What's in it for you? Are you interested in the networking? Are you interested in the professional development? What's your purpose? Know that big why around why you're going to go to that conference. And then make sure that you're doing it for all the right reasons. That's a win-win for you and for your company. Because you see, attending an industry event, it's a huge investment for the company, but most organizations are really big at being there for their employees and wanting to provide professional development. Now, sometimes smaller companies don't have the budget to do massive training programs that some of the larger companies have. So being able to identify some conferences that exist that can help you with that professional development it might fit in very well to the goals of your HR department. Make sure that you know what your company's attitude is towards professional development and see if there's not some synergies between you going to this conference and not. When it's time to go in and make the ask about attending, make sure that you go in with real data. Not, hey, I just want to attend this event because we've heard of it, but actually go in with numbers. Know the history of the event. How many years has the event gone on? Has the event grown year over year? Who are the people who attend? What are their job titles? What companies do the attendees come from? And if you're like, well, I don't know the history of the event or who's going to attend, reach out to the organizers. Let them know that you're looking for some data that you can bring back to your employer to let them know, hey, I need to be able to bring this back so that I can let my boss know what I'm going to gain if I attend this conference. So put together that piece. Also know how many people are going to go. Is this a 40,000 person conference, like something like South by Southwest? Or is this a 140 person conference? That means a lot. It means a lot in both the experience that you're going to have, the amount of interaction you're going to be able to have, and sometimes bosses will have an opinion about which of these is going to be better. And then also know, are our competitors going to be there? Are our competitors speaking at this conference? Is this a place that we want to just cede over to our competitors and let them have all the attention? Or do we need to make sure that we have a presence and we're going to be there? So in the process of this before, in this process of asking your boss if it's something that you can go do, the other piece of advice I have is show your passion for your job and wanting to grow and contribute to the company. It's really hard for them not to take you seriously if they know that you're all in with the company, you want to succeed the best you can. And if you have found a way to get some extra knowledge, some extra learning that's going to help you contribute, bosses want to see that. Now, you don't want to go in and be like, yay, hoo-ha, but go in and let that passion be known, that you're doing this for all the right reasons. Make sure if you're pitching your boss on the idea of sending you to a conference, that you're focusing on that return on investment that he or she is going to be making in sending you out for the week across the country, paying for your meals, paying for your hotel, and paying that entrance fee to be able to go to the event. So make sure that you're looking at all of the advantages that are there for the entire team. Now, that's the before. Let's assume your boss says yes, and you get to go to the conference. That's awesome. You're going to have a wonderful time. However, don't go in without a plan. Now that you're actually going to the event, make sure that what you do on the day you arrive is you map out the agenda. Make sure that you know when all of the learning sessions are, when all of the keynote sessions are, and when the social events take place. Even if you're a little bit more of an introvert and you really don't like going to the first timers reception because it's just not your thing, you have to remember that the company is investing in you to be there. How can you get the biggest ROI? Well, it's from participating in everything. So make sure that you know the schedule, you know where you need to be and at what time. And if you're a little bit more introverted and the social stuff isn't your key, just play a game with yourself. Just make a little side that, hey, I'm going to go to this first timers reception and I'm just going to meet one person, or maybe two. That two is probably better. I'm just going to go and have conversations with two people. After I've had two meaningful conversations, and that's more than just hi and then walking away, it's actually learning who they are and a little bit more about why they're at the conference and what they're trying to accomplish. Once you've met two people, if you're not comfortable, you don't want to be there anymore, you've lived up to your commitment, then you can go back to your room. However, when you meet people at a networking event, at a live conference, one of the problems people have is they feel like it's really superficial. That's why instead of going in with some sort of an elevator pitch where you just sort of flick a switch and talk about yourself, my recommendation is that you remember a couple of questions that get other people to talk. Let's face it, other people at these conferences, especially tech conferences, they don't necessarily know how to begin the conversation either. So they're always so grateful when someone else comes along and has a couple of ideas, sort of like just, how to get the conversation started. So my recommendation is that you memorize 3 or 4 questions that gets other people to talk about who they are. So obviously one of the questions is where are you from? Especially when you're at one of these national conferences. One of the best things that you can do is you can get people to talk about geography. Where do they come from and who do they work for? What type of job do they have? That should get the conversation going. And typically after they answer that question, they're going to answer this or ask you the same exact questions. So that gets that going. But the best question that you can then ask somebody is, how come you attended this event? Because let me let you in on a little secret. You attended the event for a series of reasons. But the people who you meet, they may have attended the conference for other reasons. And there's two reasons you want to know that. Number one is they might have an idea you never thought of. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea. I should be doing that too. But the other thing is now when you know what their purpose is, you can help them achieve it. So if they want to be there because there's something specific that they want to learn, and you happen to know the agenda very well because you've done your homework, you can make sure that they didn't overlook that at Thursday at 3:00, there's a session on that one topic that they want to learn. Or if there's someone there specifically they want to meet, maybe you already know that person. Or if you run across them at the cocktail party, you can walk them over and introduce them to your new friend. So make sure you find out sort of why people are there. And then the other trick is even before you arrive, set up appointments with people who you want to connect with within the industry who you know are going to be at the conference. If you're able to obtain the attendee list, and some conferences don't publish it, some won't give it out, that's okay. But a lot of them have a page on their website where it says attendees. And you can look at that page and you can sort it by person or you can sort it by company name. And if you can go through and look at who's going to be there, there may be someone there who you know, maybe someone that you went to college with, someone you worked with at your first job. Set up those appointments in advance so that you know during that downtime that happens in most agendas that you can actually have time to meet Becky for coffee or whatever it is. So think through that. If you haven't set up any meetings in advance, the other thing is as you're meeting people, you can always say, hey, are you sitting with anyone at dinner tonight? Because then it gives you a chance to have someone there with you that you can go to dinner with. I recommend that you don't spend the whole time at the conference with a coworker. If you're fortunate enough to get to travel with 1, 2, or 3 other people from your office, and you clump together in that group the entire time, you've basically flushed so much of the ROI down the toilet. You need to make sure that you're looking for new people and having conversations. But here's the thing to remember. Meeting someone once and just talking to them for a few minutes over a glass of wine, it does not make them part of your network. And sometimes people go, well, Tom, I'll send them a LinkedIn request right when I get back to my hotel room. And now we're linked forever in the digital world of LinkedIn. Meeting someone once does not make them part of your network. It simply makes them someone you have met once. In order to actually move into having a real business relationship with somebody, you have to have a series of ongoing, deeper conversations. That's why when you meet cool people, you should always try to see where are they sitting for dinner, because it's over meals that we can have deeper conversations than we do at, say, that first timer's reception. So during the event, make sure that you're working hard to network, even if it's not your forte. Give yourself an out. After you've met 2 people, you can go back to your room, but make sure that you have a plan for every single networking break. And also, what do you do when you get to a session? So sometimes, they'll have a half hour between sessions and you get to the room early because you want to sit up front. It used to be that people would go in and sit there. Someone would sit a couple of chairs away, and eventually someone would be like, hey, where are you from? And a conversation would start. But we all know in 2020, that's not the way it is. You know what happens now at these conferences, right? You get into the room, you sit down, 4 or 5 other people sit around you, and everybody whips out their phones and starts looking at whatever it is that interests them. Some people are looking at sports. Some people might be doing work. A lot of people are looking at social media or reading the news. And nobody ever looks over and says, hey, where are you from? So the conversations that happen at conferences are happening less and less. That's why you have to take ownership of it. When you get into the room, don't take your phone out right away. Wait till a couple of people sit around you. See if you can start a conversation. Obviously, you don't want to be rude. If people want to be on their phones, you know what? They're grown-ups. They can be on their phones. But you want to make sure that you go into any time you're in that situation with people where you can start up a conversation and learn, who is it that I'm sitting next to? There's a lot of serendipity in getting the value out of conferences. Now, I have been the presenter at nearly 1,000 conferences throughout my career, and I will tell you, I have talked to people in every possible industry, and they always tell me the biggest value that came out of the conference was that serendipitous meeting that I had with these 2 people right before or right after one of the breakout sessions, or at the luncheon, or whatever. But here's the thing, if we're spending more and more time on our phones and not actually having conversations with people, that sporadic chance of a spark of making that connection that's going to have some meaning, it's becoming harder to do at the conference. So when you're around people, remember, it's time to choose people and put your electronics away. The other thing to do while you're at the event is make sure that you're taking notes. The human brain is great. It's an amazing computer, but it doesn't have really good memory when it comes to remembering details. I'm still a handwritten note kind of guy. I carry a notebook with me to conferences, and often at a 3-day event, I can fill an entire composition notebook with just notes that I've taken from the keynotes and the breakouts. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you're writing down the important points that you're hearing, because one of the things you're going to want to do afterwards is be able to share with your team, especially your boss, the information that you garnered while you were at this conference. The odds of being able to go to this conference next year or another event that comes up is going to go way up if you can justify it by saying, here's what I learned, here's what I bring back to the team. So make sure you're taking notes. Now, some people take notes on their phone, and that's awesome. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying find a way to be able to write down the key things so that later you can go back to them and put them into some sort of a great way to be able to follow up. The other thing I mentioned in that first section as you're planning is the speakers. One of the best things you can do is connect with the people who are speaking. Now, sometimes the keynote speakers, some of them are famous or they're not from your industry, so maybe they're not the people you need to connect with. But the people who are doing the workshops, the breakout sessions, those are the people who really are the most valuable people that you can network with, because at least on some level, they've been invited to be there as an expert. And so what you want to do is if you get to the room early, you can go up and talk to them. One of the best things people get my attention when I'm the speaker is they'll ask if they can help me put my handouts on the chairs. They'll help me set up if there's something that I'm doing, or at least they'll make the offer. And therefore, it starts a conversation. And then you can tell people, I specifically came to this breakout session over the other 5 choices because you're going to talk about XYZ, and that's really important to me. And then afterwards, go up and thank them for the presentation. Because you've taken notes, you can recite back to them the 1 or 2 things that were really relevant. When I give a speech, I oftentimes ask people to come and tell me, what was the best takeaway that you got? And the reason that I do that is it helps me know what's important to the audiences, because there starts to be trends that are left behind. So it's important to the speakers that you talk to them. You don't have to be their best friend. You don't have to take them out to lunch, although that'd be cool. However, you definitely want to try and have conversations with them. And if they're talking about something that specifically relates to your job, now, afterwards, or before, you have the chance to get a deep dive and tell them, your topic's really important to me. Here's why. Could you answer a few more questions? Most of them are going to say yes. Some of them are going to talk to you for as long as you need. So that's what you need to be doing while you're on site at the conference. The last thing I'll add to that is while you're on site, have fun. Fun is a choice. Make sure that you're taking advantage of everything that's going on at the conference while still being true to yourself. I always tell people, if you're a little bit more introverted, you don't have to dive into all the social stuff. But, introverts still like to have fun. You still should be taking advantage of it and participating, at least for part of it. You can always go for a half hour or 45 minutes and take an Uber back to the hotel. There's nothing that says you have to go to the closing party that's 4 hours long for 4 hours. But you really probably should show up and take advantage of it. Now, what do you do when you get back? You've been at the event for several days. You're now back. The number one thing you can do is transcribe your notes and share them with your team. And you're going to have to put them into some sort of an understandable format so that people can look at it and garner some of the knowledge that you've gone ahead and picked up. Maybe one of the things you could do is you could offer to lead a lunch and learn workshop for everybody on your team about the key things that you learned, where you share everything with everybody. If speaking to the group isn't your forte, maybe you could write a blog post for the company's internal blog, or just some sort of a little short paper that you can leave for everybody that lets people know kind of the valuable things that you heard, what trends you spotted, and then also let your boss know who you met. If you're good at being able to collect business cards, list out a list of these are the people I met, what their job titles are, and what company they're from. And then you can have a strategy session about, are any of these people someone that we as a company should follow up on? Maybe some of them you give to the salespeople, and you could, let them know that these people are out there so that maybe that's somebody your company should be selling to. Maybe it's somebody you just want to partner with because you do similar type things. But make sure that you're looking for synergies the whole time. Who are the people I'm meeting, and how can this relationship be beneficial to me and the company? So I hope that helps. I think live conferences are more important now than they ever have been. Obviously, since the beginning of business, there have been conventions. There are associations for every single industry that you could ever imagine. So live gatherings have been happening for a long, long time. But 10 or 12 years ago, when the internet really became a big deal and streaming became really popular, people were worried that live events would die out. That why would anybody need to get on a plane, stay in a hotel for 3 or 4 days to get information? Well, in 2019, it was the biggest year ever for the live events business. There were more conferences in every possible industry you could imagine than at any time before, because people are hungry for that live human connection. We love our computer. We love our social media. We love to stream data. However, people need to connect. We're wired as human beings, as social animals. And so we need that. These conventions are doing better and drawing more people because we've had a good economy, but it's also because people are hungry for that connection. They want to connect. In fact, there's actually an epidemic of loneliness going on out there in society. Now, a lot of people would say, Tom, what are you talking about? We live in the most connected society ever in the history of human beings. And that's true. However, the big problem is that a like, a link, a share, and a follow is not human interaction. And reading a long white paper that somebody posted is not the best way to learn. Interaction and human connection really does matter. That's why conferences are thriving. So make sure that you're taking advantage of these where you can and when you can. And make sure that you go into every single conference with a plan of action before, during, and after. So I hope that was helpful. I know a lot of you who listen to the show will be off to conferences in March, April, May, and June, or maybe you'll listen to this years later because the podcast lives forever in the world of the internet. And I don't think that this advice dies out over time. I think this advice stays really true. So if you're planning to go to a conference, you want your boss's approval, I hope that this episode was helpful for you. So we're going to be back in a couple days. Craig will be joining me again, and we're going to have some more great interviews here on the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. I want you to join us every single week because we have thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out right now at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.